At home for joining us this hour. I want to show you a picture of Oak Creek, Wisconsin today. Look, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, down there in the lower right-hand corner, that little glimmer of sort of a pretty color, that unfortunately is Lake Michigan. Here's another view of this. What you are looking at here is a collapsed bluff at a coal-fired power plant that's right on the shore of Lake Michigan in Wisconsin. For perspective here, so you can get a sense of how big this spill is, that tiny little yellow rectangle there, and the other little rectangles of a similar size that you can see in this image, those are container storage units, similar to the ones you see loaded on the back of an 18-wheeler, which, you know, is something that's this size. So that spill at Oak Creek tossed those, look at those container storage units into the mire and into the lake like they were Tonka trucks or toothpicks. See that little flat piece right there in the muck? That's the roof of a building. The scale of this spill makes it look like a Monopoly hotel. The company that operates this power plant that had this spill today, We Energies, we as in Wisconsin Energies, says that this disaster happened at about 10:45 yesterday morning. They said they have hired a contractor to try to clean this thing up. So now, of course, we're back to some big energy company's huge, disgusting disaster in water that everyone depends on. And see that little thin line of boom right there? That is the pitiful means by which the whole thing is supposed to be contained. Boom. About 10 million Americans have as the source of their drinking water that lake. While We Energies acknowledges this bluff collapsing 200 feet over Lake Michigan and throwing all that stuff into the lake, and they also acknowledge that coal ash was likely, quote, some of the material that washed into the lake, they also insist that coal ash is not a hazardous material. It is unlikely there will be any health impacts at all from this event. That's the same thing the coal industry said, of course, after the last one of these coal ash disasters, the December 2008 dam break at the Kingston Fossil Plant in Harriman, Tennessee. That spill, you will recall, dumped more than a billion with a B, gallons of toxic coal slurry across hundreds of acres and into local ponds and streams and a river. Coal ash doused with water and left in containment ponds for years, thus the sludge. Coal ash contains toxic elements like arsenic and mercury and lead. In the Tennessee disaster, a tidal wave of this toxic sludge flooded people's front yards and their backyards and their houses and the whole valleys that they lived in. They think now that it'll take 4 years to clean that Tennessee disaster up. Residents were first told that it would just take 4 weeks to clean the whole thing up. Since that disaster in 2008, the Environmental Protection Agency has been looking into better ways to regulate coal ash, since there are huge pits of the stuff sitting around aging fired power plants all over the country. Often, as in Wisconsin today, they are conveniently poised right next to the source of drinking water for millions of people. 2 weeks ago, Republicans in the House voted to block the EPA from being able to do anything about this. They voted to block the EPA from having authority over coal ash, which, after all, the industry says is healthy. Absolutely nothing to worry about. Lake Michigan full of coal ash? Well, that's no different than Lake Michigan with no coal ash in it. Have a sip, take a dip, eat some fish, it's fine. We Energies, the company that owns the power plant where this happened today in Wisconsin, it should be noted, also lobbied heavily against the EPA being able to do anything about this. They insisted that they had this sort of thing all under control on their own. Didn't need any pesky regulations. They obviously had this thing in hand. The Oak Creek power plant, site of this disaster, is in the district of Congressman Paul Ryan, famous for writing the House Republicans' Kill Medicare budget. Paul Ryan voted to block the EPA from doing anything about this. Maybe he will help himself in the cleanup now. That vote in the House was 2.5 weeks ago. This week, part of the Oak Creek power plant collapsed, and coal ash and God knows what else, and storage units the size of semi-truck trailers careened into Lake Michigan, and now they've got a line of boom out there trying to clean it up.